At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister Kate told everyone that I was a washout who couldn't even handle civilian life after the military. 2 hours later, her FBI boss walked into the restaurant where I was eating alone and said, "Director Chen, I didn't expect to see you here." At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister Kate told everyone that I was a washout who couldn't even handle civilian life after the military. 2 hours later, her FBI boss walked into the restaurant where I was eating alone and said, "Director Chen, I didn't expect to see you here." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I hadn't been home to Boston in 3 years. Not since the day I left the VA hospital with a prosthetic leg and a medical discharge that ended my Army career at 31. But Thanksgiving was supposed to be different. It was supposed to be the moment I told my family about the intelligence agency I'd been quietly building, the classified contracts I'd secured. The family brownstone in Beacon Hill looked exactly the same, 4 stories of brick and ivy that had housed generations of Chen family achievements. But as I climbed the front steps with my cane, I could already feel the familiar weight of their disappointment. Inside, the dining room gleamed with ancestral portraits and crystal. My parents had gathered the entire extended family around the mahogany table that had witnessed a century of Chen's success stories. Not a single military photograph remained on the walls. The American flag that had hung in our foyer since my great-grandfather's World War II service had been quietly removed. Even my West Point graduation photo had vanished, replaced by Kate's FBI Academy diploma and my cousin David's Harvard Law degree. It was as if Captain Elena Chen had never existed, as if the woman who'd led intelligence operations in Afghanistan was just an embarrassing chapter the family preferred to forget. My mother, elegant in her Chanel suit, barely acknowledged me. "Elena," she said, her voice carrying old Boston aristocracy's chill. "I was hoping you'd wear something more appropriate. Thanksgiving is about gratitude and family success, not dwelling on past setbacks." Past setbacks. That's what she called 4 years of military service, a silver star and a Purple Heart, earned when our compound was attacked outside Kabul. My father sat reviewing financial documents, looking away when our eyes met. But it was Kate who delivered the killing blow, standing with her wineglass raised, her FBI credentials gleaming on her blazer. Before we say grace, I think we should acknowledge that not everyone finds their path immediately. Some people struggle with the transition from military to civilian life. Her gaze found mine. "Elena's been having a difficult time adjusting, but we should pray she eventually finds something she's actually good at, instead of pretending she can handle real-world responsibilities." The room filled with sympathetic murmurs, refined pity that old Boston families had perfected over generations. My Aunt Margaret patted my shoulder. David nodded knowingly. I sat there in my Target dress, my hand reaching for the classified phone in my purse. Just 4 hours earlier, I'd been in Langley, briefing the National Security Council on Operation Silent Shield, a counterterrorism network I'd built that had already prevented 3 major attacks on American soil. But looking around that table at my family's pitying faces, I realized they saw none of that. To them, I was just Elena the failure, the damaged veteran who couldn't transition to civilian success. Kate raised her glass higher. "To finding our proper place in the world. May we all discover where we truly belong." The family drank to that, their gentle laughter echoing off ancestral portraits. But as they celebrated my apparent failure, I made a decision that would change all our lives forever. If they wanted to see real success, I'd show them what a failed soldier could accomplish when she stopped asking for their approval. The call came at 2:13 a.m. while I was driving back to my hotel, still replaying Kate's humiliation at Thanksgiving dinner. I'd pulled over at a rest stop outside Hartford, surviving on gas station coffee and bitter family rejection. "Elena." The voice was familiar. Agent Commander Lisa Rodriguez, my former military intelligence liaison who'd transitioned to the FBI's counterterrorism division. "I heard you were asking questions about Operation Blackwater." "Rodriguez, I didn't realize anyone was monitoring my research." "I monitor a lot of things, Director. Especially when someone of your clearance level starts investigating cases that shouldn't exist." Her voice dropped. "We need to meet. There are things about your sister's recent assignments that you need to know. Things that go beyond family drama." "What kind of things?" The kind that got Agent Morrison's team compromised in Detroit last month. My blood ran cold. Morrison, a young counterterrorism agent killed when his surveillance operation was blown by what the Bureau called an intelligence leak. 3 agents dead. That was a random security breach, I said, but the words felt wrong. Was it? Rodriguez's silence stretched like a tripwire. Freedom Trail, tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Come alone, and Elena? Delete your search history, all of it. For weeks, I'd been quietly investigating Operation Blackwater, a joint FBI-CIA domestic terrorism prevention program Kate had mentioned during family calls. She'd seemed proud, bragging about high-level intelligence coordination and preventing domestic threats. But the more I researched, the less sense it made. Operation Blackwater was supposedly tracking homegrown terrorist cells, yet every major domestic attack in the past year had blindsided the Bureau. Worse, several prevention operations had been compromised at the last minute, allowing suspects to escape. I started digging deeper using military intelligence skills. What I found made my hands shake. Kate wasn't just participating in Operation Blackwater. She was the primary intelligence coordinator. Every failed operation, every blown surveillance, every terrorist who'd slipped through federal fingers could be traced back to intelligence assessments that had passed through her desk. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or join Morrison permanently. I looked around the rest stop. A few truckers, a family with kids. But a black SUV had been parked in the shadows for 20 minutes, engine running, tinted windows reflecting harsh parking lot lights. I grabbed my laptop and headed inside, choosing a corner booth where I could watch all entrances. The deeper I dug into classified databases, the worse it got. Kate wasn't just missing terrorist threats. She was actively misdirecting resources away from real operations while feeding false intelligence to field agents. Every time the Bureau got close to a major domestic terrorism network, Kate's reports would suddenly shift focus to dead-end investigations. She wasn't incompetent. She was working for the other side. I cross-referenced her financial records with failed operations. The pattern was unmistakable. Regular deposits into offshore accounts, always within 48 hours of compromised FBI operations. My sister, who'd mocked my military service at Thanksgiving dinner, had been selling FBI intelligence to domestic terrorists while building her career on the bodies of agents like Morrison. The black SUV was now positioned near the entrance, its occupants speaking into what looked like a satellite phone. I slipped out the back exit, using delivery trucks as cover. As I started my rental car, I noticed something wrong. My rearview mirror had been adjusted. Someone had been inside my vehicle. At the next gas station, I found it. A sophisticated tracking device, military-grade GPS invisible to civilian detection. Kate hadn't just been selling FBI operations to terrorists. She'd been tracking my movements, monitoring my research, preparing to silence me like they'd silenced Morrison. Standing in that parking lot, crushing the tracking device under my heel, one thing became clear. My family's Thanksgiving mockery hadn't been casual cruelty. It had been strategic humiliation designed to keep the failed veteran isolated, while Kate continued her double-agent operation. The Freedom Trail at night was a maze of cobblestones and shadows, Boston's historic markers glowing under streetlights like breadcrumbs leading through a dangerous fairy tale. I arrived 30 minutes early, using the time to scout escape routes and identify potential threats. Old habits from Kabul. Never walk into a meeting without knowing how to walk out alive. Agent Commander Rodriguez emerged from behind the Old North Church at exactly 10 p.m., moving with the careful precision of someone who'd survived too many betrayals. Even in civilian clothes, she carried herself like a federal agent who'd learned that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Director," she said, the title carrying weight in the darkness. "You look like someone who's seen too much truth." Thank you, Rodriguez. Always knew how to boost morale. But I was relieved to see her. In a world where my own family had become the enemy, Rodriguez represented something solid. She handed me a manila envelope thick with classified documents. "What I'm about to show you never existed. If anyone asks, we never met. And you never saw these files. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Inside were photocopied FBI communications, financial records, and surveillance reports dating back 18 months. The letterheads were a mix of Bureau counterterrorism units and domestic intelligence divisions. Operation Blackwater, Rodriguez said, her voice barely audible over the wind off Boston Harbor. A joint FBI-CIA program designed to infiltrate and neutralize domestic terrorist networks. Your sister was recruited as a double agent, someone who could feed false information to terrorist cells while gathering intelligence on their operations. I scanned the first document, my blood pressure rising. She was supposed to be working for us. That was the plan. But somewhere along the way, Kate flipped. Instead of feeding disinformation to terrorists, she started feeding real FBI operational details to them, while providing false intelligence back to the Bureau. Rodriguez's face was stone in the streetlight. She became a triple agent. The papers rustled in my shaking hands. Names, dates, operations. A catalog of FBI agents who died because Kate had sold their positions, their cover identities, their mission parameters to the very terrorists they were hunting. How many casualties? I whispered. 17 confirmed KIA over the past year. Over 40 operations compromised. Rodriguez's voice cracked slightly. Good agents, Elena, people who trusted their intelligence coordinator to keep them safe. I thought about Morrison and his team, about families who'd been told their loved ones died in the line of duty, never knowing they'd been betrayed by someone wearing an FBI badge. Where does this end? Rodriguez pulled out another document. Your sister isn't just coordinating with domestic terrorists anymore. She's been recruited by a foreign intelligence service, we think Russian SVR, to help coordinate attacks on American infrastructure. The Thanksgiving weekend attack on the power grid in Texas? Kate provided the security assessment that identified the vulnerabilities. When's the next operation? We intercepted communications suggesting a major attack during the holiday shopping season. Multiple targets. Coordinated strikes designed to create maximum civilian casualties and economic disruption. I stared at the documents, my mind racing through tactical possibilities. This wasn't just about justice for dead agents anymore. This was about preventing a terrorist attack that could kill hundreds of innocent Americans. What do you need me to do? Rodriguez smiled grimly. What you do best, Director. Go undercover and extract the truth. We need someone Kate trusts. Someone she won't suspect of being federal law enforcement. Her washout sister who can't handle civilian life, I said, understanding immediately. Exactly. You're gonna reach out to Kate, tell her you're struggling financially, ask for her help, let her think she's recruiting you into her operation. And then we find out who she's really working for, what they're planning, and how we stop them before Black Friday becomes America's darkest day. The FBI Boston field office rose 12 stories above Government Center, its federal architecture a monument to law and order that Kate had been systematically betraying. I stood across the street in my cheapest outfit, wrinkled khakis and a discount sweater that screamed financial desperation, preparing to play the struggling veteran my family already believed I was. I signed in at the marble lobby as Elena Chen, personal visitor, watching the guard's expression shift to subtle pity when I mentioned visiting my sister. To him, I was just another family member checking on their successful relative. The elevator ride to the 7th floor felt like descending into enemy territory. When the doors opened, I was hit by the familiar hum of federal law enforcement, ringing phones, hushed conversations, and the weight of classified secrets. I found Kate in her corner office, a space that screamed career advancement with its harbor view and walls covered in commendations and photos with bureau leadership. She looked up from her computer, expression shifting from surprise to barely concealed irritation. Elena, what are you doing here? How did you even get clearance to? I told them I was your sister, I said, letting desperation creep into my voice. Kate, I need to talk to you. I'm in trouble. Her irritation softened into concerned superiority I'd been counting on. What kind of trouble? I sank into the chair across from her desk, playing the broken veteran. Financial trouble. The VA benefits aren't enough, and I can't find decent work anywhere. Nobody wants to hire a disabled veteran with PTSD. I let my voice crack. I'm about to lose my apartment. Kate leaned back in her leather chair and I caught satisfaction in her eyes. Elena, I told you this would happen. The military doesn't prepare people for real-world success. I know, you were right. The words tasted like poison. Look, I heard you mention something at Thanksgiving about consulting work, private security assessments. I was wondering, maybe you could help me find something? Her expression shifted, becoming calculating. What kind of skills do you have, besides the obvious military training? Intelligence analysis, threat assessment. I still have my security clearance. I paused, letting the hook sink deeper. I know how to identify vulnerabilities in security systems. Kate's eyes lit up with interest. Vulnerabilities? Physical security, communication networks, operational procedures. I spent years learning how to find weak points in enemy defenses. I leaned forward, playing desperate. I'm good at it, Kate. Really good. I just need someone to give me a chance. She was quiet for a long moment, wheels turning in her head. There might be something, she said finally. I work with some private contractors who need people with your specific skill set. What kind of contractors? Security consulting. They help organizations identify potential threats and vulnerabilities. Her voice was smooth, practiced. It's sensitive work, Elena. The kind that requires absolute discretion. I can be discreet, I said eagerly. I just need to pay rent. Kate pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. I might be able to arrange a meeting. But Elena, if I do this for you, I need to know you won't embarrass me. These people don't tolerate failure. I won't let you down, I promised, meaning it in ways she couldn't imagine. Good. She stood up, smoothing her blazer. There's a coffee shop in Cambridge, Café Luna, near MIT. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Ask for Marcus Volkov. Tell him you're Kate Chen's sister and that you're looking for consulting work. Marcus Volkov. I filed the name away, pulse quickening. A Russian name, just as Rodriguez had suspected. What should I expect? Just be honest about your capabilities, Kate said, walking me toward her office door. Tell him exactly what you told me, that you're good at finding vulnerabilities and you need the work. As we reached the hallway, she put her hand on my shoulder with sisterly affection. Elena, I'm glad you came to me. Maybe this is exactly what you need to finally find your place in the world. I nodded gratefully, playing the grateful sister while mentally recording every detail. Kate wasn't just recruiting me for consulting work, she was handing me directly to her Russian handler. Tomorrow at Café Luna, I'd meet the enemy. And with luck, I'd finally get the evidence we needed to stop Kate's operation before it killed more innocent Americans. Café Luna near MIT was exactly the kind of place Russian intelligence would choose for recruitment, crowded with students, multiple exits, and enough ambient noise to mask sensitive conversations. I arrived 15 minutes early, positioning myself at a corner table where I could watch the entrance while appearing to study my laptop like any other struggling job seeker. Marcus Volkov entered at exactly 3 p.m., moving with the controlled precision of someone trained in tradecraft. Mid-40s, expensive but unremarkable clothing, eyes that catalogued every face in the room before settling on mine. He approached with the confident smile of a man who owned every space he entered. You must be Elena, he said, extending his hand with practiced warmth. Kate speaks very highly of your specialized capabilities. Thank you for meeting with me, I replied, letting desperation show in my voice. I really need the work. Volkov settled into the chair across from me, ordering coffee in unaccented English. Kate tells me you have experience identifying security vulnerabilities. In your military service, I assume? Intelligence analysis mostly, learning how insurgents found weaknesses in our operations. I leaned forward slightly. I got good at thinking like the enemy. His eyes sharpened with interest. And you maintained your security clearance after discharge? Yes, though it doesn't seem to matter much in the civilian job market. Oh, but it matters very much in our line of work. Volkov pulled out a tablet, swiping to what looked like architectural blueprints. We provide security assessments for high-value targets. Government buildings, transportation hubs, Critical infrastructure. Our clients pay well for thorough vulnerability analyses. I studied the blueprints. They showed the Boston Federal Building, complete with security camera positions and access points. What kind of vulnerabilities are you looking for? All kinds. Physical access, electronic surveillance gaps, personnel security protocols. He paused, watching my reaction. Sometimes our clients need to test their defenses by simulating potential attacks. The hair on my neck stood up. This wasn't security consulting. This was reconnaissance for actual terrorist operations. That sounds like exactly what I'm trained for, I said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. Volkov smiled, but his eyes remained cold. Excellent. However, I should mention that discretion is absolutely essential. Our work requires complete operational security. No communications outside our network, no contact with former colleagues, no questions about client identities. I understand completely. Good. He slid a business card across the table. Report to this address tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Ask for Mr. Petrov. He'll provide your first assignment. I pocketed the card, my pulse racing. Petrov, another Russian name. What should I expect? A test of your capabilities. If you perform well, there will be more work. Lucrative work. Volkov stood, dropping a 20 on the table. And Elena? Kate mentioned you've been struggling since leaving the military. We take care of our consultants. Financial security, medical benefits, even housing assistance if needed. He was offering everything a desperate veteran would want. Exactly the kind of recruitment package Russian intelligence used to turn American assets. Thank you, I said, shaking his hand. I won't let you down. I'm certain you won't, he replied, then leaned closer. One final thing. Kate was quite specific that you're to have no contact with law enforcement or intelligence agencies. Given your background, I'm sure you understand why that would be problematic. After Volkov left, I sat in the cafe for another 10 minutes, processing what had just happened. Kate hadn't just connected me with private contractors. She'd handed me directly to a Russian intelligence cell operating on American soil. I pulled out my encrypted phone and sent a simple text to Rodriguez. Contact made. Meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. They're planning something big. Tomorrow, I'd walk into a Russian safe house and pretend to be a desperate veteran willing to sell out her country for financial security. In reality, I'd be gathering the evidence needed to dismantle the entire network. But as I walked back to my hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that Kate had orchestrated this meeting for reasons beyond simple recruitment. She knew exactly who I was and what I was capable of. The question was whether she was setting a trap for me or if I was setting one for her. The safe house in Cambridge smelled of coffee and paranoia, but it was the perfect place to disappear, while Russian intelligence believed I was just another desperate veteran they could exploit. I'd been here for 6 hours, analyzing Volkov's business card and the address he'd given me, cross-referencing everything with federal databases I still had access to. My encrypted phone buzzed with a message from Rodriguez. Safe house secure, coming to you. 20 minutes later, Agent Commander Rodriguez arrived with someone I hadn't expected, Assistant Director James Park from the FBI's Russian Counterintelligence Division. Park looked like he'd been fighting digital ghosts for years, his eyes carrying the weight of tracking threats that could disappear with a single keystroke. Director Chen, Park said, extending his hand. Agent Rodriguez briefed me on your sister's situation. We need to coordinate our approach carefully. I spread Volkov's business card and printed surveillance photos across a folding table. The address he gave me leads to a consulting firm called Strategic Solutions International. It's a front company, registered 3 months ago with a shell corporation based in Delaware. Rodriguez studied the surveillance photos I'd taken outside the building. How many operatives are we looking at? At least 4 confirmed Russians, plus Kate as their FBI liaison, I said, pulling up financial records. They're not just running intelligence operations. They're coordinating multiple terrorist cells across New England. Park's face went pale. The Black Friday attacks? Worse than we thought. I found communications suggesting coordinated strikes in Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C. shopping malls, transportation hubs, government buildings. I handed him encrypted message intercepts. They're planning to make it look like domestic terrorism while using intelligence Kate provides to avoid federal response. Timeline? Rodriguez asked. 48 hours. Tomorrow I meet with Petrov for my quote-quote test assignment. which I believe will be the final reconnaissance for their Boston target. Park finished reviewing the intercepts with grim news. My superiors want to move immediately. Arrest Kate, shut down the cell, prevent the attacks. But if we move too early, the other cells will disappear and we'll never find them. We need to let me complete the mission, I said. Get inside their operation, identify all the targets, document their entire network before they can scatter. That's asking you to walk into a Russian intelligence operation and pretend to commit treason, Rodriguez pointed out. I've done worse things for my country, I replied. Besides, they think they're recruiting a desperate veteran with financial problems. They have no idea they're dealing with the director of their target agency. Park looked confused. Target agency? I smiled for the first time in days. Strategic Solutions International isn't just gathering intelligence on federal buildings and transportation hubs. They're specifically targeting the operations of the Defense Intelligence Agency's Domestic Threat Assessment Division, which you run, Rodriguez said, understanding dawning in her eyes, which I built from the ground up after leaving the military. Kate thinks she's recruiting her washout sister to spy on random government buildings. She has no idea she's handing me the keys to dismantle a Russian intelligence network that's been trying to penetrate my agency for 2 years. When do you meet Petrov? Park asked. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. By tomorrow night, we'll have everything we need to stop the Black Friday attacks and roll up the entire Russian network. The question was whether Kate would figure out who I really was before I could gather enough evidence to stop her. The House Intelligence Committee hearing room felt like a battlefield, with television cameras positioned like artillery and reporters packed behind security barriers. I sat at the witness table in my dress uniform, every ribbon and medal catching the harsh lights that would broadcast this moment to millions of Americans. 2 days had passed since our raid on Strategic Solutions International. 2 days since we'd captured Volkov, Petrov, and 3 other Russian operatives in the middle of planning coordinated Black Friday attacks. 2 days since Kate had been arrested at FBI headquarters while trying to warn her handlers that their network had been compromised. Now Kate sat 20 feet away at the defendant table, flanked by federal public defenders who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Her FBI credentials had been stripped, her security clearance revoked, her career destroyed by her own choices. Congressman Sarah Martinez, the committee chair, called the hearing to order. We're here today to examine the penetration of federal law enforcement by Russian intelligence. Director Elena Chen, you may begin your opening statement. I leaned toward the microphone, my voice steady despite the weight of betraying my own sister. Honorable representatives, for the past 18 months, Russian intelligence services have operated a systematic espionage network within the FBI that directly compromised 17 counterterrorism operations and resulted in the deaths of multiple federal agents. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Camera flashes erupted like muzzle fire. These operations were not random intelligence failures, I continued. They were deliberate sabotage coordinated by Agent Kate Chen, who sold classified FBI intelligence to Russian operatives while misdirecting federal resources away from legitimate terrorist threats. Kate's lead attorney stood up. Objection, Madam Chair. The witness is hardly objective given her obvious family grievances and her sister's superior career trajectory within federal law enforcement. Director Chen is testifying as the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency's Domestic Threat Assessment Division, Congressman Martinez replied coldly. The same division that uncovered this espionage network. You may continue, Director. I pulled out surveillance photos from our Cambridge operation. These images show Agent Chen meeting with Marcus Volkov, a confirmed SVR operative, at the Strategic Solutions International Front Company. She was photographed providing classified FBI operational plans that were later used to coordinate attacks on federal agents. For the next hour, I walked the committee through Kate's betrayal. Financial records showing Russian payments. Communication intercepts revealing operational details sold to enemy intelligence. Video surveillance of her warning Volkov about federal investigations. The most damning evidence came last. A recording from our final meeting. Kate's voice clear as she tried to recruit me into her espionage network. Elena's perfect for this. Kate's voice filled the chamber. She's desperate, isolated, and has exactly the security clearance we need to access defense intelligence operations. The silence that followed was deafening. Several committee members sat with their heads in their hands. Kate's attorney made one final attempt. Director Chen has orchestrated an elaborate entrapment of her own sister, motivated by professional jealousy and family resentment. That's when the chamber doors opened, and someone walked down the center aisle who would change everything. FBI Director Patricia Wells approached the witness table, carrying a folder that would prove Kate's guilt beyond any doubt. FBI Director Patricia Wells walked down the center aisle with the measured pace of someone carrying devastating truth. She took the witness chair beside me, her voice clear and authoritative despite the weight of what she was about to reveal. My name is Patricia Wells, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and I'm here to provide additional context about Agent Kate Chen's espionage activities and Director Elena Chen's undercover operation to expose them. The chamber fell silent except for the whir of television cameras capturing every word. What the committee and the American people need to understand, Director Wells continued, is that Agent Chen's betrayal goes far beyond selling operational intelligence to Russian services. She systematically compromised the personal safety of federal agents and their families. She opened a thick folder, her hands steady despite the gravity of what she was revealing. Agent Chen provided Russian intelligence with detailed profiles of FBI agents, including home addresses, family member information, children's school locations, and personal vulnerabilities that could be exploited for blackmail or assassination. I felt my blood run cold. Kate hadn't just sold operational secrets, she'd marked federal agents and their families for targeting. I have here payment records showing $2.8 million received from SVR services for what they termed deep background assessments on 347 federal agents nationwide, Director Wells said. These assessments included psychological profiles, financial records, and detailed surveillance reports on agents' daily routines. Kate had gone pale as winter marble, her attorneys frantically whispering among themselves. But perhaps most disturbing, Director Wells continued, Agent Chen also provided home security assessments and family protection protocols to foreign operatives, essentially creating target packages for Russian assassination teams operating on American soil. She turned to face Kate directly. Agent Chen didn't just betray her oath to the Bureau. She weaponized the trust of every federal agent who believed their personal information was protected by the institution they served. Kate finally spoke, her voice hollow and desperate. Patricia, you don't understand the pressure I was under. The Russians had compromising information. What information? Director Wells asked sharply. Financial records, personal relationships. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd destroy my career, my family's reputation. Kate's composure cracked completely. I thought I could control it, feed them just enough to keep them satisfied while protecting the important operations. By important operations, you mean the ones that didn't threaten your personal security, I said, unable to stay silent. You sold out agents with families, people who couldn't fight back, while protecting cases that might expose your own corruption. Kate turned to me with tears streaming down her face. Elena, I never meant for agents to die. I thought I was being smart, strategic. I thought I could manage both sides. You thought wrong, Director Wells said firmly. Agent Chen, you will be charged with espionage, conspiracy, accessory to murder, and treason. The agents who died because of intelligence you provided, their families deserve justice. She stood up, addressing the committee directly. Representatives, I want to commend Director Elena Chen for her courage in exposing this network. She risked her life going undercover to gather evidence against her own sister, knowing that discovery could have resulted in her assassination by Russian operatives. As federal marshals approached to take Kate into custody, she looked at me one final time. Elena, I know you can never forgive me, but I need you to know, I really did think you were struggling. I genuinely believed I was helping you when I introduced you to Volkov. I stared at my sister, this woman who'd mocked my service while selling federal agents to foreign assassins. What you believe doesn't matter, Kate. What matters is what you did. The marshals led her away, leaving me alone at the witness table as the committee processed the magnitude of her betrayal. Kate hadn't just committed espionage, she'd turned American federal agents into targets for foreign assassination teams. The family washout had just exposed the biggest counterintelligence breach in FBI history. The headlines dominated every news cycle for weeks. FBI agent charged with treason. Sister exposes Russian spy network. 347 federal agents targeted for assassination by foreign intelligence. The cable news networks ran the hearing footage continuously, Kate's breakdown and my testimony becoming the most watched Intelligence Committee hearing in history. I stood in Arlington National Cemetery, watching them inter Agent Morrison for the second time. His family had requested military honors after learning his death hadn't been a random terrorist attack, but a deliberate assassination coordinated by an American federal agent. His wife Jennifer stood beside me in her black dress, their twin daughters clutching small American flags. "Thank you," Jennifer whispered as the honor guard presented her with the folded flag. "For making sure Tom's death finally has meaning. For making sure the truth came out, even when it cost you your family." The Justice Department had moved with unprecedented speed. Kate was denied bail and faced life in prison on 17 counts of treason, espionage, and accessory to murder. The Russian network was dismantled completely. Volkov and his operatives faced deportation after serving federal sentences. The Black Friday attacks that would have killed hundreds of innocent Americans were prevented entirely, but the personal cost was devastating. The media attention had made normal family relationships impossible. My parents, unable to process having one daughter as a national hero and another as a convicted traitor, had cut off all contact. Extended family members avoided me at public events, unsure whether to treat me as family or as the federal agent who destroyed our name. That's when FBI Director Wells made an offer that changed everything. "The Bureau is creating a new position," she said over coffee in a secure Washington cafe. "Deputy Director for Counterintelligence Operations. Someone to oversee all cases involving foreign penetration of federal law enforcement. They want someone with your background, your experience, your proven loyalty. They want someone who's already been tested by the ultimate betrayal," I said. "Someone who can't be compromised because they've lost everything that could be leveraged against them." Wells nodded. "The pay is substantial, the responsibility is enormous, and you'll spend your career ensuring that no federal agent is ever again sold to foreign assassins by their own colleagues." 6 months later, I sat in FBI headquarters, reviewing counterintelligence protocols with the kind of scrutiny that would have prevented Kate's network from operating. My team consisted of agents who'd survived foreign recruitment attempts, analysts who'd been targeted by enemy intelligence services, and investigators who understood that trust was earned, not inherited. Kate wrote from federal prison every month. Her letters included updates on the intelligence debriefings she was providing about Russian operations, legal assistance she was offering to other federal prisoners, and always, the names of the 17 agents who'd died because of intelligence she'd provided. She was keeping her promise to remember their sacrifice. Poor Tiwa. I never wrote back. Some betrayals run too deep for forgiveness, but that didn't mean they couldn't heal into something useful. The woman who'd been mocked as a washout at Thanksgiving dinner had become the deputy director responsible for protecting every federal agent in America from foreign intelligence penetration. It wasn't the family reconciliation I'd once wanted, but it was the mission that mattered. Sometimes the price of protecting your country is losing your family, but some prices are worth paying. 2 years later, I stood in my FBI headquarters office, watching a room full of federal agents shift uncomfortably as I presented my latest findings. Phoenix Consulting, a cybersecurity firm with $600 million in government contracts, had been selling federal agent personal data to Chinese intelligence services. "The pattern is undeniable," I said, clicking through encrypted communications we'd intercepted. Every agent targeted for recruitment by Chinese intelligence had their personal information processed through Phoenix's security clearance database within the previous 6 months. Director Wells leaned forward. "What's your recommendation, Deputy Director Chen?" "Immediate termination of all Phoenix contracts, criminal referral to justice, and comprehensive audit of every contractor with access to federal personnel records." I looked directly at Phoenix's CEO. We've learned that trust in counterintelligence work must be verified constantly, not assumed. The investigation that followed would result in 15 arrests and prevent another massive compromise of federal agent safety. But for me, the real victory wasn't in headlines or prosecutions. It was in the message sent to every foreign intelligence service targeting American law enforcement. Someone was watching who understood the true cost of betrayal. My counterintelligence operations division had grown from 12 agents to 63 investigators. Former military intelligence officers who'd survived foreign recruitment attempts, federal agents who'd been targeted by enemy services, analysts who'd lost colleagues to espionage networks. We called ourselves the SHIELD Division, and our reputation had made foreign intelligence services think twice before attempting to penetrate federal law enforcement. Late one evening, my assistant knocked on my door. "Deputy Director Chen, there's someone here to see you." Jennifer Morrison stood in my doorway, no longer the grieving widow I'd met at Arlington Cemetery. She wore an FBI badge, her bearing confident and determined. "Tom would have been proud," she said, gesturing around my office with its walls covered in counterintelligence protocols and foreign threat assessments. "You turned his death into something that protects every federal agent's family." She handed me a folder. "I'm joining your division next month." Director Wells approved my transfer from victim services to active counterintelligence. Turns out having personal experience with espionage makes for very motivated investigators. I smiled genuinely for the first time in months. "Welcome to the SHIELD Division, Agent Morrison." After Jennifer left, I sat alone thinking about the journey from that Thanksgiving dinner humiliation to this moment. The family that had mocked my service was scattered, Kate serving life in federal prison, my parents living in self-imposed exile in Florida, unable to face the shame of having raised both a hero and a traitor. But I'd found a new family among the investigators who'd chosen protection over profit, loyalty over personal gain. People who understood that sometimes the most important victories were measured not in personal success, but in federal agents who went home safely because someone was watching the watchers. My phone buzzed with a secure message from Director Wells. "Deputy Director Chen, the President has approved your promotion to Associate Director of the FBI, effective immediately. Congratulations. You've officially become the highest-ranking intelligence officer to expose and dismantle a major espionage network." I closed the message and looked out at the Washington skyline. The woman who'd been called a washout at Thanksgiving dinner had become the associate director responsible for protecting American intelligence operations from foreign penetration. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's building something so strong that their weapons become obsolete. The quiet revolution continued, one protected agent at a time. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.